my Power Automate to help you keep up to date with Microsoft 365 and evergreen change. It's about 45-50 minutes presentation. If you've got any questions, can you just please raise your hand and then I can take you off mute. We'll also open it up to some questions and answers afterwards as well. So to start off with, it's a great thanks to all of the sponsors and also the organisers of this event. Without the sponsorship, these events can't happen, and we don't get the opportunity to learn from each other in the Microsoft 365 community. So also, Microsoft 365 Chicago is supporting this Children's First Fund charity. So if you want to donate, please scan the QR code and donate as appropriate. And also we've got some raffles and giveaways. So have a look through here. There's opportunities to tweet, to drop into the different sessions, enter the raffles to win some great prizes here. So just a little bit about me. So I'm Nikki Chapple, I'm based in the UK and I'm a specialist in Microsoft 365 governance, compliance and productivity. I regularly post in LinkedIn. I've got my own website there. The QR code here will take you directly to my blog, where I've actually put a detailed blog article about this session today. So don't worry if you don't get everything and you want to try this out later on. So say scanning that code there and that will give you detailed instructions of how to build the Power Automate process. So why did I come up with this session? I work a lot with clients all around the world on Microsoft 365, and keeping up to date with Microsoft 365 evergreen change is hard. There are just so many changes coming out all the time. Lots of the services are interlinked, particularly things like Microsoft Teams. It's not a singular application. It's using SharePoint, and you've got all of the other integrated services that go with it. So trying to understand from a technical, a business and also sort of that data compliance viewpoint, how do we keep up with the change? So the challenges that we tend to come up with are these. You've got that lack of visibility to triage. If you're relying on just going into the admin center in Microsoft 365, then that's a restricted role. It's not open to all users, so you've got to have an admin role. It's difficult to make people accountable for these changes. They're in a list, you can see them, but you can't assign tasks to people. You can't say, please go away and assess this from your particular viewpoint. So you're looking at it quite singularly. There's a heavy operational cost really to managing this. You can see them in the admin center, but how are you going to communicate? How are you going to change that to people? So much of this time is copying and pasting out information in the message center to other tools to actually then go on and process. Collaborating with non-admins is also difficult as well. Changes aren't just for the IT. We need to understand what the impact is on the business users. So it's not just an IT challenge to manage the change management process. We need to get those business champions and stakeholders involved. So what happens is you end up managing that content, pushing and shoving the information in, trying to make sure people keep up to date with stuff, and trying to remember to actually find that time to go in on a very regular basis to the admin center to look at those changes. Well, let's look at what we can do today to change that and move it forward and make sure you're actually proactively managing those changes. So let's go through the process. So what we'll do is we'll start off by looking at that message center, just in case people are not familiar with it. So this is the kind of the central source of truth for Microsoft to post all of those changes into the admin center. Then step 2, we'll look at how we can configure and schedule a sync of all of those changes into a planner board of your choice. So you're taking that step away, that manual copying and pasting. We can now push the information outside of the admin center so a wider group of people can look at it. Then we'll look at how we can automate some of those processes. So once you've got it into Planner, well, let's go and categorize the different changes that we've got in there. Is it Teams? Is it SharePoint? We can then add checklists. So if you've got a standard process that you want people to follow, if you've got different assessments, an IT and a business assessment, and you want to confirm that those steps have been taken, we'll add that in. Then we'll automatically assign those tasks to a user or even groups of users. And finally, we'll look at notifying stakeholders. In addition to those flows, what you can also do with Power Automate, you can have multiple flows, because we've categorized those planner tasks with a label. We can say if the label equals Teams, we'll then add this checklist, add this task of users and notify these people. So that's what we're going to do today, to take it from a kind of quite insular, admin only, ad hoc manual task to something that's standardized, is automated, and it can be customized to meet your business processes. So let's get straight on and dig down into the demo. So we'll start off by looking at the admin center. So if you're not familiar, changes are posted in the admin center under health and message center. So you can see a list of all of the upcoming changes here. Let's make it a bit bigger. You can see the services that they're here. So they're all tagged here, so there can be multiple. You can filter by those services. That's quite a nice thing to do if you want to see anything to do with a particular product. I'm only interested, say, in Microsoft Teams. You've also got tags, again, multiple tags that you can associate, so you can understand what the impact is. Is it just an IT admin impact? Is it going to have an impact to the data? Is it a major update? And you might need to have a different workflow or process if it's a major update, or whether it's things like data to privacy. Again, if it's data privacy, you might want to notify somebody else in the compliance or your data protection team to have a look at it. So from that side, that's quite useful. So if we open one of these up, you've got some information here, and this is where we'll just take a little look at this of how it's labeled. So you've got some information here. It'll have the ID, it'll have a published date, and it'll have a date that it's updated. So changes coming in two forms. You've initial published, and then quite often, very often, they're updated. So this is normally when Microsoft push out those changes and update the timescales. Sometimes it's for other information. That's important to know. And we've got information here of the services and the tags. We're going to be using this information here when we categorize our tasks in the message center, and you can categorize them based on any of these tasks, depending on your workflow and those different options. The one thing to note is this updated. So what will happen is when we look at a process going forward, we need to understand whether it's an updated or a new change. So what else can we do? Well, you can send information to yourself. So you can look at the preferences. And what you can do is you've got this option here where you can email changes. So this would be kind of your very basic kind of change process on a weekly basis. Send me an email plus some other people if you want, and send me emails about, and then you select the services that you're interested in. So again, you've got that option to filter it down. So I would say that would be the basic, at least email it to you and two other people that you can email it to. But actually, that's still quite a basic process. So we're now going to look at how we can sync this to a planner. But before we go into that sync process, we need to set up a plan, and we need to understand where to build the plan. So my recommendation is when you create the plan, create it in a team and make sure all of the members of the team are all of those stakeholders that have an interest in Microsoft 365 changes. So this is not just the IT team, this is the business change team. If you've got your learning and development team, also managing training for end users, get them involved as well. If there's compliance or data protection impacts, get those other teams involved. Add them all into one team. So everybody that is a key staker has got visibility. So that's step one. We've created a team. I've added a channel here called MC Sync. What you would do is you would create a tab and you would need to create a new planner. It's called Task by Planner. And here you've got the option to either create a new plan or use an existing plan. For speed, I've already added that in. So here is my tab in the channel, and it would initially be empty, but I've just posted an example of what it will look like. So when you sync, what you're going to be doing is syncing something that comes across like this. It will have the service in square brackets at the beginning of the change. That's important. We're going to use that to create labels. And then in the body, in the description of the task coming across, you have these tasks. And again, I'll show you how you can use that to assess your changes. So if changes have been synced over and they look like this, you have to go through, or somebody has to go through and manually assign tasks to people. You can move the buckets and you can add labels. So I can add a label, but when you look at the labels, they just show as colours. So one of the things you must do is decide what you want your labels to be and what colour. So I want the pink label to be teams, and I want, we'll select it for this one. And this one, a red label, we'll call that as a user impact. And we can select that as well. If you don't go through and update your labels, when you come to tagging, what you will see is just colours. So when we can sync and we'll automatically create all the labels, actually in the planner board, it'll say the blue label. So for your stakeholders and the people assessing this, they're going to say, what is that blue label? So it's really important when you set it up is to go through and set all the labels up. You've got lots of different options and colours that you can use. Just got to make sure that the labels here match what we're going to do in the process. So you can go in and we can manually create some information here. So we've added some tags, we can put dates in it. We can go through and actually manually add a checklist if you want, IT assess, and then we might want. But if you've got lots of changes, that's just going to take a significant amount of time as well. You might have moved the change itself so a wider group of stakeholders can see it. But if you want to do more and proactively work with different groups of people, there's still a substantial amount of work that you need to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to look now at how we actually get the data from the message center in here and then build that Power Automate flow to automate what I've just done here. So we're going to automate adding labels, assigning it, and doing tasks. And if we've got enough time, I will show you how you can do multiple workflows. So we say, if it's based on a label called team, do these sets of actions. If it's user impact, do another set. So let me just delete this for the time being. So we would start off with an empty board. We now go back to the message center. Once you've set that up, give it a few minutes, because when you go into here, if you immediately set up your planner board and come in here, what I found is I can't find that planner board. So hence why I'd set one up before. Sorry, don't go into we go into planner syncing, setup syncing, nice easy process. Search for your plan. Here we go. My plan was called, let me just check what one called was. Demo MC Sync, and you can check where that is. And then you want to say where you're going to put them on. And so you can put them into an existing bucket, which is the default one, the to-do, or if you've got your own bucket names, or if you want to create a new bucket now, you can create something in here. One thing to be mindful here is you can only set up one sync for your tenant. So if you've got multiple teams looking after multiple workloads, you can only set up one. So if somebody who's responsible for Microsoft Teams goes in and sets this up, and then as we go through, we say what am I interested in, unticks all of these and says I'm only interested in Microsoft Teams changes. The person that goes in that might be looking at Exchange Online will not be able to go in and to create a planner board. So this is something you've got to look holistically across your organisation and say, what changes, what are the maximum amount of changes that I need? Sync everything into the planner and then do your workflow within the planner board itself. So as I say, you've got the options to decide what services that you want to bring in there. You can go back and update this afterwards. And then this is, I think, a useful feature is I can go in and import in a set of tasks, the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks or 4 weeks worth of data. So let's import in the last 28 days worth of data. And I would suggest doing the 28 days because Microsoft will give you that 30 days notice before a change is coming in anyway. So the likelihood is the last 28 days worth of changes won't have already gone into GA by that point. Then once the syncing is set up, you can choose how often you want to sync it. So for example, I want it synced on a daily basis before I come into work every day. So I want it set up in the morning. Initially, I can't see an early time. That's because it's saying today's date. So obviously it can't sync in the past. It has to be a future date. So if I want to sync it in the morning and I'm setting it up in the afternoon, I would need to push it forward to say start from tomorrow and then say I want it set up for 6 a.m. in the morning. And I want to repeat it every day, every 2 days, every 3 days. I prefer every 1 day, so people have got the maximum amount of time to set it up. Then we create that flow. So that's been all set up now. Another thing to be mindful of, the account that creates this, if the user leaves, the same with the kind of the Power Automate, you will lose access. Again, think about, do you want to set this up with a service account as well as the kind of the Power Automate? So it really doesn't matter if people are moving throughout the organisation, it'll always be there. So while that's going through here, that is now syncing. And it's done. So now if I go back to here, I'll go back into my message center. What it is now done, it is now automatically imported in all 28 days worth of information. I've actually got a flow running at the moment. So just to show you what happens. So I've actually pre-created this flow so I can show you. Once we've got the automation in place, not only has it updated all the changes, it is going in, and I've only shown 2 tags. If it has the name Microsoft Teams in the title, it's automatically tagged it Teams. So that's all those ones there. And so it's just to show you kind of an example of how it might work when you kind of automate it. You can build on that. You can automatically assign tasks to other people and various other things. I think it's just waiting to actually go through and do that. So that's done. So what we will look at again now is how we're going to create this. So the Power Automate process is going to automatically add labels, and it's going to add labels either from text in that description. So the bits in the square brackets in the front are the kind of the services, and also under here in tags, this is the description box. Under tags, you've got those key tags. Again, I'm looking for words in the description. So we're going to be looking for user impact in the description, and we'll look at Teams, Microsoft Teams, such as this one, and we'll add some labels to it. So let's go and look at the flows. So let me just switch this one off for a minute, and we will build a new flow. So we're going to start a new flow from scratch, and we want an automated cloud flow because we want to trigger this on an event. And this flow is going to be triggered when a task has been added to that planner board. So let's search for tasks. Oh, so I need to put a name. And we do task. When a new task is created. These are the options you've got when working for Planner, when it's created, when it's assigned to me, and when it's completed. What you will notice, and it's a limitation in this, there is no trigger for when a task is updated. So you can't do any actions if the message center change is updated. and then the automatic sync will update the task in your planner, but you can't do any further flows on this. So we want to say when a task is created, we need to understand which group it's in. Our team was called Demo, and our planner board was Message Center Sync. Next step is we need to bring back the description of the task. So what we'll need to do is we need to look at tasks, and we need to get the task details. That will bring back the description. So we've got the information about the title and the information about the description, so we can add some labels to it. Okay, so now we've got all of the information we need about the task to start doing some action on it. So what we want to do is we want to update that task. When you do update a task, make sure you do update task v2 preview. This one has the option to create all your labels. See all the color labels? They're the labels that will correspond to the color label that we added on the planner. We just need to make sure the rules in here. So I'm going to set a pink label up for Microsoft Teams. You need to go into the planner, label your pink task Teams so people know what they mean. So what do we need to do? First step is we need to pull in the ID of our task. So we've pulled in the ID. We don't need to make any updates. I'm not updating the titles, dates, times, anything like that. All we're going to be doing here is creating some labels. So we're going to create 2 labels, but you can create whatever labels you like. I'm just showing the concept of how we can create from the title and the description. Enter a custom value, and we're going to go and choose an expression. And we're choosing the expression called contains. What that will do is it's going to look for text to say, does this dynamic content contain this information? It's Boolean, yes or no. And that's what these labels need. It's if it's yes, you get the label assigned. If it's no, you don't. So contains, then we can go to the dynamic content and choose the dynamic content. So we might want to choose in here, I want title. So if we go down and scroll down for the title. So we say contains in the title, then we have to do comma, bracket, quotes. It's adding in those double quotes. Now we're looking for that text string. So I want Microsoft Teams. So that's now going to add a label if the title contains the string Microsoft Teams. That becomes true. That enables the pink label. We'll do the same thing for red, but this time we'll just do it on the description. Exactly the same process. Contains, brackets, you can go to the dynamic content, get task details, there's the description. I move across. Then comma, quotes, and it was user impact was the task what we're going to pick up now. So that's going to, you would do that multiple times. So in the one that I've got, you know, I've got about 20 different tasks there for all the different services and the different labels as well. So it doesn't take too long to go through. Important thing is make sure you update the labels in the planner to reflect what the labels actually mean, so everybody is clear. So that will then update that task. Now we might want to add in a checklist. So this is a different step. This step here is to update the task details. So rather than update the tasks, we want to update the details. Again, we need to find the ID of the task. So go into the custom value, ID of the task. And here we've got this option for checklist. And this is a one-to-many, it's an array. You can have multiple checklists in here, multiple values. Each one contains 3 elements, an ID, so like a 1, 2, 3. So number 1, checklist, that's going to be an IT assessment. And you need to select whether you want this checked on or off. Well, we want it not checked, If I want to add an extra item, which I do, I can do a second one. So this is item number 2, and this might be business assessment, etc., etc. So we will do that. The next step is, once we've got the labels and the checklist, we looked at how we could manually assign these people. Let's automate that process. So we can add a step. Again, we'll look at the tasks, and there is a step there to add assignees to a task. Again, same as all the other steps, we've got to go and find that ID of the task, and then you can add people in. So this is where you can add in one or more email addresses. So let me just quickly show you a scenario where I'm manually just adding in an email address of somebody. If you want lots of people, put the semicolons against it. And that will then automatically assign that task to people. I will show you in a little while how we can actually assign it to a group of people. We'll get the membership list for a group and then assign it to them. Then the last thing that we're going to do on this basic process is let's push a notification to the team. So we can do, let's look at the teams. We've got the option here to post a message to the chat or the team. As a flow bot or a user, we'll just do it as the bot in this scenario. We want to post it to a channel. And for some reason, it doesn't seem to want me to delete that step. Message. So we're going to post a message, and that's working this time. We're going to post it in the channel. We want to know which channel we're posting it in. Well, we're working in the demo team, and the channel we're working in is MC Sync. Again, I'm going to show you a simple one, and we've got time. I'll show you how you can do it with adaptive cards as well. So we can say message in message center. Obviously, you can put your own text in here. Then you can add in your dynamic content. So let's have a look at, we want to add in the title of the task. So when a task is created, because we haven't made any updates to that title, adding a space, and then we might want the description. So you've got all these notifications coming through from the changes. From the get task details. Now I might want to make this bold, so I've put that bold there. So this is the simplest form really of a Power Automate. So what we're going to do is when a new task is created, so every time that sync process happens and it adds that task to planner, that's a new task, it's going to trigger this flow. We're going to get the task details. We're going to update the task to add one or more labels, and those labels can be labels that you choose to suit your business process. Then we can update the task to add the checklist. Again, the checklist topics can be anything that you wish that aligns to your flows. And then we can add a task. In this scenario, we're adding the task to Mike, and then we're going to post a message. So let's save this and let's test this out. Obviously missed something out. Yeah, I haven't done the yes, no bit on there. That'll work now. So what we'll do is it's all ready to go. So let's test it, and we're going to test it manually, and we're going to test. So let's go to our planner board and find something that has Teams in it. So this one here, this is Microsoft Teams, and it's got the user impact. So they were the two labels that we were interested in. So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this task. I don't want to copy those labels over, and I don't want to copy any checklists just in case there's any checklists. So I'm going to create a duplicate of this task, and then we can just put in the front here. We can just put copy in the front here. It's got teams and it's got that user impact. So I'm going to copy that, and that will now trigger my flow to work. So, and the process is going. So, and that went through very quickly. So when the task was created, so that new task that I copied, it goes back and it pulls back all of that description, the information. So the get task details is going to pull all of the information that you've got in here in your notes section. That will pull that back. Then it's going to update the task for those labels. Now, pink equals true and red equals true. So if they're false, you won't see them here, but these, because we've set pink and red up, they'll either come back true or false, depending on that criteria. Pink contains Microsoft Teams, red contains user impact. So however many labels you have there. Then we're going to update the task details with the checklist, so that steps worked. We're going to add that assignee to the task, and then we'll put the message. So how does this look? So first of all, let's look at Mike's viewpoint. So Mike has been assigned a task, and unfortunately he seems to have millions of tasks assigned to him. So what he will get is he will get a message to say that he has been assigned a particular task. You can add in Task by Planner, you can add this into your message bar by going into the three dots and typing in Task by Planner and To Do, and then you will see all your assignments. You can see them and your progress and everything in there. So that's what an end user who you've assigned a task would see. What we see from our board, our team, we wanted to send a message to that sync. What you actually will get at the moment is should get a simple message, but for whatever reason it hasn't worked. Here we go, this is it. So you would get a message that comes out like this. So we said a new change in the message center, and we have the title in bold and then the text. It doesn't look very pretty. What I will show you is how we can make that look a little bit nicer by using an adaptive card, and then we can actually link directly to that team. Then if we go back to our demo, and because I've got so many here, let's look for the word copy. Here we go, that was my copy that I made here. So it's automatically added the label Teams. Because it's got the word Microsoft Teams in the title, it's automatically added the word user impact because I was searching for the word user impact to add that red label. We added Mike Smith, we've automatically added him as the assignee, and also here's my checklist. So now people can go through, and if you've got multiple people you're assigning it to, you can add in your checklist and people can tick them off as you're going through. So that process is all automated, but it's all quite standard. You know, you've just got one workflow. So what do you want to do if you've got multiple flows, different business processes? So we can edit this now and make some changes. So what we'll do is we're going to now split it. So if it's got a label that is pink, that's Microsoft Teams, we'll do one set of processes. Otherwise, it will do another set of processes. And we'll also, I'll show you how to assign it to a group of people. So people in a group or a team. So what I will do up the top here is I'll need to set up a variable. So we want to initiate a variable, and it's going to be a string variable. And this is going to hold the lists of, I suppose, the members of the teams, so that all of the members, and it'll be blank. So we'll add that in first, and now what we need to do is put in our condition statement before we add the assignee. So we'll go in between after we've updated all the tasks, the details, added the labels, add in a step and put in a condition. and it's going to be based on that pink label. Make sure, importantly, choose update task, not when the task created. If you take that by mistake, they're all blank. So it's never going to trigger. Update a task, pink is equal to expression true. Oops, wrong one. So we're now saying if the pink label equals true, so if it equals Microsoft Teams, then do this yes path. If no, do the no path. So immediately we've now got two different workflows. So you could put multiple versions of here. So what we'll do is if it's no, we're going to assign it to Mike, and we're going to post the message in the message center, sorry, in the chat, just a standard message. But if it's yes, we're going to assign it to a group of users. First of all, we need to find that list of members of a team. We're going to assign the task to the members of all of the demo teams. If we go to the demo team, I look at manage team, there's 7 people, 1 owner and some 6 guests. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the membership list of all of these, and I'm going to assign all of these people to that task. Okay, so first of all, we need to get look for an Office 365 action for the groups action. So this is anything to do with groups, which includes a team. We want to list the group members. And we want to choose which group, demo. That's all that action does, is we're going to get a list. Now what we want to do is append those members one by one to our variable. So we need the append to string variable, pick our variable that we created up above, so at the beginning of the step. And now we want to add in, we want to create a list of email addresses. Pick the user's mail address. We need to open it back up again and put a semicolon, because if you miss that semicolon out, you're going to get a big long list of emails and it won't work. So they all need to be separated by semicolon. You notice that the apply to each step has been added. That's because you're going to have 1 to n people. You could have multiple people in that group, and it's going to loop through each person in turn and append them one by one. Then we can now add that string variable. We're going to assign the task to that string variable. So let's look. Add assignees to a task. Find my ID. So I'll go back. Find that original when a task is created ID. So rather than creating a big hard coding in people's email addresses, I'm now just going to assign it to a variable. Now you can also, I would recommend also creating a variable up front if maybe you're assigning it to email addresses. So rather than having to wade through all the detailed steps, if you've got to assign a variable up here, you could put people's email addresses. So it's an easy one place to go if you decide that you don't want to assign to a group and you want to assign to users. Then what we can do is we can now add an action, and what we will do is we will post an adaptive card. We're going to post as a flow bot. We'll do a channel, team thing, and then we need to post in our adaptive card information. So bear with me, I just need to get that information out. I didn't copy it out. Don't just quick copy the information from this one. So this is the adaptive card JSON. You can use the adaptive card builder. If you look at my blog, I've actually put this in, and what this will do is it will provide some title text block, and then it will have a series of information. And what you can see here is I've pasted in that dynamic content to say, show me the title, the created date, the due date. And then what I've done at the bottom is I've created an action box, which is going to take me to my planner ID within my planner. So let's save that. And then let's test that. We can test that with that previous trigger. And we'll trigger it now. So let's see, the flow has run. We can check as we're going through which route is it going to go down. It had a pink label, so it's showing as true, so it's going to go down the yes part. So it means it's Microsoft Teams. Therefore, we're going to get the list of members, the demo group, and it's going to apply to each. There were 7 members of my team, 1 owner and 6 members, so 1 out of 7. So it's going around all 7 people, and it's going to append it to that string. So that does there. It will just go through, so you can see each email address coming up here for your team, and it will now assign that to this semicolon separated list of email addresses, and then it's going to post my adaptive card. So let's have a quick look at this, what it looks like. So when we post an adaptive card, what it looks like, it just comes out a little bit neater. If you post everything, you know, it looks a bit messy and too much text and information there. But adaptive card, you don't need to have so much information. You can just have the title and any other attributes. But rather than having everything in the message, we've got this interactive link. And what this action link does is, because we've put the ID in, I can click on that, and that's now going to open up my task in my planner. And as you can see now, we've now assigned that task to all of the members of the demo group. So this is just kind of just to show you the different options that you can do. So the key thing is for you to map out what your different workflows are, and then you can adapt your Power Automate process when you go in here, your conditions. You could have multiple conditions here. If it's pink, and, or you can choose, and if we could have red, if the task has a red category is equal to, for example, or you could start doing other things. You could just do, you know, if the title contains, so use that contains thing. So you can build up your different rules here, have different flows. You know, you can have, you know, if yes, do this, if no, and then you could potentially embed another condition in here. You do have to use this type of a condition. You can't use anything else because I was just basing it on the label. So you have to have those multiple views of it. So let's go back now to the presentation. Just to recap what we've done. We've looked at the standard process. So it's got the message center, lots of useful information in there. It's critical we look at it, but there's no way to disseminate that information to people. So then we said, well, let's schedule that sync. So I showed you how you can schedule it to the planner. So these changes are now disseminated to a wider group of people that can include non-admins. But there's still a lot of manual processing going on, you know, to add value to it and actually get people to assess it. Somebody's got to go in there, assign them and add the labels. So lastly, what I've showed you what to do is by using Power Automate, we can build those enhancements to it to automate their processes. So I've showed you how you can add labels to categorize your tasks. And then based on those labels, you can have multiple different workflows. And those workflows can then add checklists, assign tasks to either single users or groups of users, and then notify stakeholder groups, by messages. I showed you adaptive cards. You could, Power Automate allows you to do email, etc. So that shows you the information. So really the summary is it's really about basic, better and best. At a bare minimum, you know, somebody needs to be going into that message center every few days to go and look at the changes and to make sure key stakeholders are aware, you know, copying and pasting the information out and making sure people know of the impact. Take, for example, the change that's coming out for, you know, deleting meeting recordings after 60 days. I mean, that could have a major impact on the business. So somebody needs to be in there all the time checking. But the downside is you've got to be an admin. There's no real accountability. There's no ownership assigned to any of those tasks. Any processes are manual to take it out into another tool. Collaboration, well, you can't collaborate. You know, everything's in isolation. You might be sending an email. So for me, it gets a thumbs down. Then we showed you how to sync to a planner. Now, this is what I say, this is okay. You know, this is something that you could switch on. You could, you know, finish this meeting session and go back and switch on in 5 minutes. Definitely do this. That allows you visibility by your triage team. They're all added to the team that the planner's in. You will need to manually assign tasks, but at least it's there, you're going along. You can, it's a standardized process, albeit manual, but you can have a process there. All of your stakeholders are in a team, so yes, you can collaborate. But really what I recommend you do is build in the customized Power Automate process. Take a bit of time, work out your workflows, or you could just start off with and do that bare minimum one that I showed you at the moment, just assign it to, you know, all tasks to a standardized flow and then enhance it. Visibility. Because we're now sending messages out, we can share this with all stakeholders. So you could have one team that has access to a planner. You could send messages out or emails to other stakeholders. You've got now accountability because you're automatically assigning those tasks based on the change labels. You've got an automated, customized and multiple workflow process depending on those labels. So for me, that gets a thumb down, and that's what I work with my clients to implement. Just a couple of considerations before we finish. You can only have that one sync to one planner board. So make sure you sync everything, even if you don't need to do any assessments on it, at least the information's there, and then assign based on the different labels. When there's a new change in the message center, you're going to get a new task. If it's an updated change in the message center, the ones that got updated in the title, it's going to update a task. So I don't copy tasks to another planner board because you can't update tasks. So this is the scenario where initially I thought, oh, I'll have all the team's tasks going to planner board A, or the SharePoint tasks going to planner board B, and have separate planner boards for them. That works well for the first time you sync because they're all new changes. But then as the process goes through, because tasks are being updated, those updated tasks can't be copied to a new planner board because Power Automate doesn't allow a trigger based on when a task is updated. So what will happen is if you copy all the tasks to other planner boards, you get all the nice new changes, but then they're never ever updated. So they get out of date very quickly. So don't do that. Manage everything in the one planner board and use those labels to categorize. And then you can then choose your multiple paths from that based on the Power Automate. And then finally, if the user who sets up the sync or Power Automate loses access, then it will stop. So the process. So think about that as well. It's a lot to go through, I know, in this session, but I just really wanted to show you the art of the possible. On the QR code on that right there, that will link you to my blog post, and that will have those step-by-step guides that I've shown you in this session today, so you can go and implement it. But I think, you know, from beginning to end, if you're not that familiar with Power Automate, you could get this up and running in your own tenant within an hour. So it's not a huge process. So just some further sides at the end. Sorry, I'll just miss that. So again, please support the Chicago's public schools, Children First Trust. It's a great way for us to give back to the community as well. So scan the QR code and donate. There's raffles, giveaways as well for you to enter throughout the day. And it's really important for us that you provide feedback, you know, what works, what doesn't work, etc. So again, there's a QR code here. So thank you very much for that. So we've got a few minutes left. So if anybody's got any questions, if you want to raise your hand and I can take you off mute. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time today. And the next session will be starting in about 7 minutes. So you've got time to get yourself a refreshment before your next session of choice starts. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks a lot.